to a new episode of the RockerMike and Rob Presents show. Tonight we have Joe Sztabnik from the New York band New York Junk. Okay, Joe's been around for a long time. He's had some great bands over the years. He is involved with the Johnny Thunders tribute show, which is going to be this Friday, the 23rd of April. Starting at 8 p.m. and you could see it on Twitch TV. We will put the link up for that so everybody can check it out.
Mike, they're also showing it on Facebook Live too, I think.
Yes, right. Facebook Live as well. Check that out, and we'll have the links up for that. So I'd like to welcome Joe Sztabnik. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So what are we going over? What do we got?
Okay. So this show is the 30th anniversary of the passing of Johnny. And first of all, it's hard to believe it's been 30 fucking years already. I mean, it's like
30 years.
Flew by, you know. So I know you have a wonderful band that you've been playing with for a while called New York Junk. And I've seen your band. It's great. And I could, hear a little Johnny in there. When did Johnny start being an influence?
Well, first of all, the Dolls were just one of the great bands that ever came out of New York City, and
agreed,
they had it all. And then when we started playing in New York, multiple bands that I was in or associated with back in '74 and '75, we were always looking for an original place to play, where they want a place that played original music. So CBGB's was our place. And through that, the Heartbreakers were playing there. So of course, they were the king of the street, Heartbreakers, sure. And Johnny and the band was just, they were great. They were great. And the songs were great. And he could play and he had style and this and that. So how could you not be influenced, and having been in New York at that time? So it was one of those things that how could you not be? And anybody who played guitar, it was like, wow, we got our own Keith Richards here right in front of us every night when we want to, because he was accessible. It wasn't like some rock stars you get to see once a year, or you'd see him all the time when he was in New York. So you got to see him up close and really got a whole thing of it. And then later we became friends. So.
Great, that's great. I've always referred to Johnny as like Keith Richards on steroids.
Well,
with his, with the look, at least in the Dolls, with his hair teased out, and I always thought that was kind of a cool analogy.
Oh yeah, that he got from his sister,
Marianne, right?
Marianne, that teased hair and all that stuff, and that's. Exactly. But Johnny was his own guitar player. Nobody played like him. Nobody can play like him. Nobody will play like him, because you could take, as Walter said, you could take his guitar and his amp and pick it up and play. You're not going to sound like him. Nobody will, because he had it. He had it.
Well, he had a few techniques, right? I remember Joey Pinta talking about that. A few techniques that really kind of, the way he tuned his guitar and stuff, or maybe kept it out of tune, I should say.
Well, I think he did a little bit, yeah. But he tuned it to his ear. He knew exactly what he was tuning to. So I think when he played a lot, if he, I won't say I know exactly that he played it, tuned it out of tune. But if you listen to what he plays, he's always bending notes to get where he wants. So it's not like just hitting a note on the string saying, well, this is the fifth fret, it's an A note. No, he was bending that note to get where he wanted. That's why nobody's going to play like him, because he's playing major scales that sound out of tune, but they're in tune, but they're major scales, and it's just him. It's
I hear you.
Pretty amazing stuff.
I hear you. It's cool that you mentioned bending. There's a I don't know if you ever saw the documentary called "Hey Hey, Is Dee Dee Home?" You ever see that with
no,
Dee
I didn't.
Ramone?
No, I haven't.
You remember the director Lech Kowalski? He did the
Lech.
Right?
Yeah.
He did the Thunders movie and everything.
Yeah.
Well, he had interviewed Dee Dee for that Born to Lose movie, and there was a lot of outtakes with Dee Dee that he didn't use. So he made his own little. And there's a great part of that documentary where Dee Dee mentions, like Johnny he said when he heard him play, he was blown away. He said because he could bend those strings and to the way he wanted, and
absolutely.
almost what you just said. And he said he was just in awe of it, and that he wanted to play in a band like that. So.
Well, that's true, because when Dee Dee quit the Ramones, I did half an album. Well, we were doing an album together. We had gotten together. Somebody called me up and said, "You come and see Dee Dee," and we started working on a record. And he did want to be like the Heartbreakers. He was tired of wearing a suit bowl haircut and wearing a leather jacket. And the guy had style. He was really smart. He was really articulate. But he had got typecast as, I want to sniff some glue and some other stuff.
Yeah,
not that he was not that it wasn't part of what he was, but there was also a whole lot more to that guy. So, we went on to write a whole bunch of songs. Yeah, we did, which were outside of the Ramones. Like Dee Dee and I wrote Poison Heart, contrary to what anybody says, and a bunch of other songs.
I've heard that, a little bit of that story. Yeah, that's a little crazy.
Yeah, and, well, it's the truth. And but that was showing you where he was coming from. It wasn't all about the crazy quick pop tune, what I want to sniff glue and whatever that.
Right.
53rd and
typical,
3rd.
Typical.
The guy was deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The guy had a broken heart. He had a soul, as hard as it was to find. But that was there, and that was what he was trying to do. And so that goes for that.
Just like how, like you're talking about, it's kind of misunderstood. I think Johnny Thunders was misunderstood in a lot of ways too. And I'm sure you'll agree, because I think that whole image of him, I didn't know him personally, so I can't speak from my own knowledge. I did see him live several times, but I didn't know him personally. But people I know that have, they just said what a nice, good guy he was. And that didn't always come across in the music.
Well, Johnny, nobody knows every side of everybody. Johnny had multiple sides.
Sure.
There were good things and there were bad things, but he was himself. He never really tried to be anything other than himself. And he was charismatic, seductive, sweet as can be, but he also could be nasty. So it's like, there's a lot of, but that was him on stage, and off stage, he was a pussycat, and then he could also be not a pussycat. So, his image, as far as I'll say, he lived the life that he wanted to live. He didn't let anybody push him around as much as you get pushed around in the music business. He had his faults,
right,
and he had his attributes, and he lived and died by it.
He was genuine, right? Wouldn't you agree?
100%. 100%.
What you saw was what you got, basically.
Yeah, and the thing is you either hung around for the, when the good parts turned bad, and if you hung around, you got burned. If you left, you'd be all right. But if you hung around, you got burned, and there's a lot of wreckage left on the street. Wow. But that was Johnny. No, and everybody went there with eyes open. So,
you had to, I guess, because you never knew what you were going to expect to see or have happen sometimes.
Hey, Mike, you remember the interview we did with Joey, and Joey just told us, I just copied Johnny Thunders. Like, he pretty much said it.
yeah, I do remember that when we interviewed him last year. I mean, Johnny, influenced Joey a hell of a lot. We're talking about Joey Pinta from the Waldorf.
Oh, sure. And he influenced a lot of people who wouldn't want to be what I'll give you like an idea. This guy, no matter what he did, he looked good, right?
Right.
So he could. He used to stay on Late Street with the German guy, Christopher. So I used to go over there all the time. And one night before a show, we're getting ready, I'm hanging out, and he's getting dressed, and he has like a box and a bag of clothes. And somebody else said a similar story. I forget who it was, but he had a box and a bag of clothes, and it looked like a pile of garbage, like,
really,
but it was all his stuff. and he'd be in there. Things were flying around up in the air, spinning around, and he'd come out and he looked like the greatest rock star you ever saw. He'd look at himself and then he went back in there. He's not saying anything and he's just, moving back and forth. He'd come out 15 minutes later, look great again. Went in,
Amazing.
didn't like it for some reason. He'd go back in there and he'd come, and he always looked great. He always had a sense of style.
Yeah.
He knew how to dress. He knew how to look the part. He knew how to comb his hair. He knew how to cut his hair. And he gives Gail a lot of credit for that, how he learned to dress.
Wow.
I forget what her last name is. Yeah.
Yes. I think I know who you're talking about. And Christopher Gerke, like his manager, right? You would.
At the time, yeah, and his mentor,
yeah.
and saved him, and basically, put him up and tried to make it happen for him. But Johnny was never going to live anything other than in his own world, and he had the talent to get what he wanted, and he had the notoriety. Now, did it always work out the best for him? No, at the end, he was trying to do it the right way, and he was really successful at the end on his own terms.
Right.
As a musician, you can't say more than that. This guy did it his own way. It's like Frank Sinatra. I did it my way, and Johnny did it his way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Now let me ask you: are you more of a Heartbreakers fan or a Dolls fan? What do you prefer?
Oh, I think they're both different bands, and they both had great players in it. Everyone in the Dolls was great, and David is still great. David is a fantastic musician and artist. He can sing. He's deep. He knows everything. He was a little bit more wanting to succeed on a different level. But all the other players in the band, first-rate players. They had soul. They had more soul than you could shake a stick at. They could play. And same with the Heartbreakers. The original Heartbreakers with Richard Hell and Walter and Jerry Nolan. Nobody could play drums better than Jerry Nolan. The guy was serious drummer. He could keep 4 different time at the same time. The guy could play.
True. That's true.
Go ahead.
He even gave Peter Criss lessons, I was going to say. I mean, he was an amazing drummer, and you can't mention Johnny without mentioning Jerry as well. But go ahead.
Yeah, and then Walter could sing, and Walter could play, but Walter had a great voice, right?
He did, absolutely.
He had a phenomenal voice. Richard Hell wrote great songs, and he could sing, and he was a great, he had the right thing. So when all those 4 guys got together, that was some band. That was really some band. So for me, basically the Dolls were, not around long enough to be the thing that really, we hung around, to see, because the Heartbreakers were there. So that basically answers that.
Yeah. And Johnny, pretty much, left the Dolls and started the Heartbreakers 1, 2, 3. There wasn't much of any downtime right there. Him and Jerry got right back on their feet and started Got Hell, and eventually Walter Law.
And then, but to follow up on that, the most prolific part of Thunder's career was his solo stuff. Yeah. And if you listen to all those records, you see what a great songwriter he was. That's when he really came into his own writing songs, because in those other bands, he was sharing with a bunch of creative guys. When he went solo, he wrote all that stuff, well, most of it himself. He wrote, and he could sing, and he had the soul, he had the feeling, he could make something out of nothing happen where you say, oh, that's Johnny, that's John, So he really had, go ahead.
A track like In Cold Blood, for instance, I don't think anybody could have written that song but Johnny Thunders. Who could have pulled that out of their brain? But Johnny.
He was insightful. He had his ear to the street, and he knew it all because he spent a lot of time on the street. Yeah. So he knew it. It was real for him. The guy could go anywhere, and he could survive anywhere, and he was always optimistic.
Question: if he was alive today, Joey, What do you think he would be doing? You think he'd still be playing, or where do you think his music would have gone? Had he survived?
Well, this is the night before he left for Berlin to go to New Orleans, because he was in New York. He was here. He was going to New Orleans to start playing the blues, right?
Right.
So we were up all night. I'll could get into the guitar story, and maybe because I played, Brooke asked me to play a song with a guitar. So I brought out the 330, which is the guitar he wanted to trade the night before he was going to New Orleans. And this will go back to even further. In the first Christmas festival at CBGB's, I played with a band there, and we opened up for the Heartbreakers. This is with Richard Hell, and I was playing this ES 330, which was the first guitar that I had, and he was playing his juniors. And he saw the guitar and remembered the guitar. He didn't remember me, remembered the guitar. But I asked him, "Can I borrow your amp?" He said, "Sure." And it was one of those what do you call it? Ampeg V2s or 4s or something like that. But anyway, that's the guitar he wanted to take with him to New Orleans, because he wanted to trade the broken Junior with, because I had that guitar for a long time. He wanted me to fix it. I was just getting around to, I wasn't going to fix it, because it should have stayed the way it was. It was incredible looking end to that guitar.
Sure.
But anyway, he wanted to trade. I didn't want to. That was my first guitar. I wasn't going to give it up. And then he left me the guitar, and I gave it back to his mother like a schmo.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, getting back to Johnny, he wanted to go and play the blues. He was tired of playing all the Heartbreaker stuff and being known for that stuff. And he wanted to play something in a that reflected his life in a different way. He wanted to go down there and do the blues, and that's what he was doing. He was on his way, and unfortunately, tragedy hit.
Yeah, it's true. 30 years ago.
Wow.
30 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember the released later on that demos he had from those final year or two of his life, and his music had evolved. It seemed he got like a little socially conscious. Songs like "Help the Homeless" and "Children of People" too.
Sure.
But there was an evolution to his music. I mean, I remember when I first heard that Sticks and Stones compilation, I think it was called, and it was that stuff's come out in various forms over the years. But I think it was the Sticks and Stones compilation that was the first one that put that stuff out, and. Remember listening to "Help the Homeless," "Children of People" too, and how Heath was being used as the saxophonist, and the music was
great.
It was a
great guy.
Very sorely missed too. He's been gone for a long time now, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I remember hearing that music and being a huge Thunders fan and going like, wow, he's going in a different direction now. Okay, he's this music is like, and it was a demo and it sounded fucking great. Okay, I could imagine what it sounded like had he really put it out.
Well, talking about that is one night him and Stevie Klassen came over to the house, and we were down playing, messing around. So I had showed him this blues song that I was working on, and as much as blues that I could play, but it was a song called "Walk My Dog."
Sounds like a blues song.
Yeah, and it ended up on Bootlegging the Bootleggers.
Oh, okay.
Song.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's my song, but that was Johnny.
Oh shit! I didn't realize that. Wow.
No, of course I didn't get credit for it. Story of my life, but that's all right. For Johnny taking it and doing it, not a problem, because he was my buddy.
Your song, it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great compilation. Okay, for the listeners out there that don't know, Bootlegging the Bootleg is a compilation of live tracks taken from different bootlegs. Okay, and Johnny was bootlegged like crazy. Okay, all the time. I mean, I remember just walking in the '80s, walking into Bleecker Bob's and looking at the next one that was, and he got bootlegged like crazy. So he had this idea. I don't know if it was his idea or if someone told him to do it, but he had an idea. Hey, I'm going to take the bootleg stuff and put it out myself, and I'm going to bootleg the bootleggers. And that's exactly. And there's a line, like he talks in between. There's dialogue in between the live tracks where he's like just talking about the songs, and he says that he says, "Fuck you, I'm going to bootleg the bootleggers."
Oh yeah,
it's funny.
It's
great.
To a T. That's but it shows you, if you listen to that track on the record, how great they could play the blues. And Johnny, when he wanted, the night we were doing this song, that guy could play the blues. And you want a serious blues player. The guy knew what he was doing. He wasn't, playing the heartbreaker riffs. He was playing the blues, And by the way, that's on the current New York Junk record. We did a version of that on our current album called Dreaming, which is out on Tar Beach Records.
Right.
And up on you can stream it or Spotify it, whatever it is. But anyway, we did a version of that song, so I figured, it was time.
After all these years, steal it back, right?
Hey guys, hey guys, you know what? You know what I can see? I can see myself just going to somewhere in the French Quarter, going to a cafe, and it'll be like Johnny Thunder just playing some blues, and you're looking at who the hell is this guy? Because
that's what he probably would have been doing.
That probably would have been him now, just hanging out there playing in places, just playing the blues.
Oh, Johnny would have been a big star. He would have survived because he just had it, and he would have been recognized. I mean, if he survived long enough, which he was, because he was making money and he was playing all over the place, but he was sick and he knew he was sick. He had cancer, right? So like he knew leukemia, he was
right? Yeah,
I believe that's what it was. So he knew. So he wasn't changing his lifestyle at the end because he knew it wasn't going to make a difference. So he just went out the way he came in. But had he not had that problem, he would have been quite successful because he could always not reinvent himself. He could always write, and he always had that charisma, and he always had the style, and he probably would have been a movie star because the guy looked great. The camera loved his face.
And that's a good point. I mean, the couple of little cameo things he did in his life, little independent features and little parts that he had. He did have kind of a knack for acting. It really, he never had a big role, but the little, you were kind of like, at least I was kind of like, he could act. That's true. He might have been a star. Now, speaking of movies, I mean, did you see Room 37? Did you see that?
No, I haven't seen it yet. No,
Don't
that
bother.
one I haven't seen. Well, okay.
All right. No, I'm just. I have to crap on it for a second, okay? And because it's just like, I remember when it was coming out, and I think they were crowdfunding it. They were going online and asking for money for it or something. I remember hearing about it, being like, okay, how are they going to tell this story? Because no one knows what happened. Okay. So how are they going to do this? But then they come out with this film, which is about the last couple of days of his life in New Orleans. The guy they had playing him, his name escapes me at the moment, wasn't that bad. Kind of resembled him a little, but the story was so stupid, and like it played like a horror movie. All right, it was like a zombie movie. There were like scenes with like zombies walking around, like he was hallucinating and stuff. And I just, I sat there and I'm such an idiot. I actually watched the movie twice just to realize how bad it was. Okay, just to get it through my head, like, no, that's a piece of shit, but on a good note, I will say that Danny Garcia did a very good documentary on, looking for Johnny Thunders.
That was fantastic.
We had him on. We had him on about maybe 6 months ago. He was during the pandemic. He was down in Brazil. and he's working on a new movie about Maxes.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
doing the new Max's movie, which is
Yeah,
should be pretty good because he had done one on Stiv, and he
that
had
was
gotten so
fantastic
much.
too.
That
Yeah,
was
he had gotten so much footage on Max's that why not? And listen, I'm glad he's doing it because that story needs to be told from our point of view. From That's why I don't knock any of these movies that came out about anybody from that time period because I like the music. It's finally getting a little play in the, because it is the most important musical thing that happened up until rap music and urban kind
Yeah,
of dance music that happened in what was I get the late 80s and early 90s that basically took over the mainstream music for a while.
right.
So but the if you look at the styles, the dress, the sound, New York City, everybody look, if you go back to CBGB's and Max's in 75, there were probably 200 people that look like all of New York City now. Everybody looks like that now. But
yeah.
back then it was only a
Yeah,
small group of people that were doing that. So while the fashion industry took on everything, I'm happy to see, movies, no matter how uh, inauthentic they seem to people who were there, at least they're telling the story and playing the music. So that's my
well,
way of looking at it.
I pretty much agree with you 100% in the sense that, like, even the CBGB's movie, which was panned, okay, by a lot of people, including people that were in the scene. I felt that, yeah, okay, it's not a great movie. Alan Rickman, I thought, was pretty good as Hilly because I knew Hilly a little bit, and I knew,
Yeah,
he had his mannerisms down pretty good, and it was what I liked about it was that the fact they even made the movie, okay, the
yeah,
fact that it's even being discussed in a mainstream kind of way because the story needs to be told, like you said. So yeah,
that's
I
right. And
definitely
and
agree.
and yeah, I liked it, even though I was there for 5 nights a week for 5 years. It's never going to be what the true story is because you can't. All these stories are unique to each person that saw it from their own point of view. There is
Yeah,
no real, one story. It's story of a
yeah,
couple hundred different people
right.
making that scene happen.
Everybody's got a different point of view. Absolutely, good
That's
point.
right. But
Yeah,
the music is the music, and it was a great time.
yeah, yeah. And
Hey, do you guys know that I think they're making a movie about the Sex Pistols, aren't they?
really,
That I don't know
I
about.
didn't hear
Yeah,
that.
there was something about that. Somebody's doing like a Sex Pistol music, and I mean a movie, and they were just doing casting. Like it's gonna be like a big movie that's coming out. I think either 2023 or 2024. You guys can look it up. It's crazy, but they
I'll
are
check. I'll
doing.
check that out. I didn't even hear about that.
Well,
I know they're making something about Joey Ramone. That's the latest news that
Yeah, but they're
has come
yeah.
doing
out.
one. They're doing a Sex Pistol one too. I think somebody's doing. It might be independent, but they were casting
Hmm.
people to like be in the crowd and stuff like
Okay,
that. You know
that would
these.
be a good movie if they do it right. Absolutely,
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
I loved that first record, but that also killed the record industry from picking up on music from New York City, which
Good.
was called punk, because
Right.
when they went on tour, they basically,
Imploded.
you know, imploded, and then the record industry said, "What do we want this stuff for? We're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
making any
There,
money
there,
because
there
the
was a
record industry is about making money.
there was
Money.
a
If you don't make
negativity.
money,
There was a
yeah,
negativity about a lot of the British bands and mostly the Pistols.
yeah,
Okay, that not. I mean, a negativity. I think that maybe wasn't totally fair to blame them, but
no,
time, like you say, the record companies were like, no, punk is nuts. We can't. We got to stay away from it. And then the radio stations didn't want to play it.
yeah,
And then you got guys like Johnny who got lumped in with that, and he
yeah.
you know, for, I'm sure you'll agree with this. Is he hated the word. He didn't like to be lumped.
None of us thought we were punk rockers.
Yeah, yeah,
When I was growing up, a punk was somebody that you didn't want to be. but that was just the handle that somebody put on that stuck. You know, what are you going to do? You can't change that. And most people weren't. If you really look at the early CBGB days, it was a variety of music. There was no one kind of music. You had the Heartbreakers, you had the Ramones, you had television, you had the Miamis, you had Mink DeVille, you had Tough Darts, you had then the B level bands like my own band, the Uncle Son and the Shirts and Star Tune and all these other bands. And there was a wide variety of music. Debbie Harry and Blondie were just like, nobody was punk. There was no such thing as punk. Why? Because they wore a leather jacket. They were punks. The Ramones were, it was all original. It was just about people playing original music. Right. That's what Hilly wanted.
That's what he did. You had to play originals to play the club. Okay. And that's what he was about. But to compare like Patti Smith to something like the Ramones is like two different things. Okay. Oh, yeah. Totally different. And that was the beauty of the New York scene compared to the British scene. And I am a fan of many of the British bands, but there's a kind of sameness to that scene, for lack of a better word. But that I think that the originality in the New York scene was 100 times more.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. And I think the link or the stream that connected all the bands is that they were anti-corporate music. They were there and they were given the chance. Nobody ever thought they were going to play any other place than CBGB's. Of course, everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to make it and I'm going to get discovered and I'm going to live in a castle in some place in France and, have limousines and all that kind of stuff, which is nonsense, but it's the dream. But the reality was, I don't think anybody ever thought they were going to get further than CBGB's because there was no place else back in 1975. The city was a disaster, and in one way it was great because it was wide open. You could do what you want. But on the other hand, that kind of music was just people who thought they had no place in mainstream music. You weren't going to play at Madison Square Garden or there was no Fillmore anymore. There was no place to go. So that was our place. And nobody really thought they were going to get a record deal or even knew how to make a record. I think Patti Smith put out their own vinyl first and it was hard back then. Recording time was really expensive. Back then it was $100 an hour if and that was 1975, $100 you could live for a week on it.
Right, it's like 1,000 now. It's crazy.
Oh, it was crazy. So I think it was just became what it became, and it is what it is. It was just a great time for the people that were there, and a great memory. And but it sparked a revolution in music.
Hey, you guys want to hear something crazy? I grew up I was born and raised in Hell's Kitchen, right? Yeah. And a lot of bands used to rehearse in Hell's Kitchen. I just remember sitting on my fire escape, and around midnight, you hear these bands rent these places. You could just hear the music out the window, just jamming and rocking. Sure. And it was insane. Like I would hear a live show every fucking night, and I didn't know who it was. And then a few weeks later, I hear it on the radio. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Well, there was a time when you could make noise in New York City late at night.
Yeah.
let's put it like
nobody complains. Yeah,
nobody.
True. I remember those days. Yes, it's true.
Hey, I used to sit on the fire escape, listen to great music, and watch all these hookers go from one car to another. It's fantastic.
You were 10 years old.
Yeah.
It was pretty crazy what was going on in the street, and nobody said anything.
No, nothing. And the cops would drive by. Nobody gave a fuck.
No.
It's true, Rob.
I mean, if you saw some of those girls on the street dressed like that or undressed like that, now you'd be like, oh man, the world went to hell.
That's true.
That is true. That was New York, but it was the greatest energy, the the greatest vibe, the greatest time to be a musician.
It
It was a
was.
good time.
But I still
And plus,
remember girls. I still remember girls getting off in the bus terminal. I was young. I was about 12. I remember these girls, 16, 17, coming off the buses with the guitar, coming to New York to try to make music, and then they talk to the wrong guy. A few months later,
yeah,
you see the girls like in the corner and they're strung out, and they were beautiful
yeah,
girls with the
There's a
guy here, and then
lot
they
of horror
just
stories like that.
it was
Yeah.
crazy. It was
well,
insane, man.
there's a lot of, a lot of damaged people, and again,
It's
it was a
crazy.
dangerous time. It was a dangerous. Listen, I don't recommend it for now. I mean, it's nice being able to walk around New York without having to worry about getting killed or raped or mugged or disappeared. But if you survived it, and if you survived it in one piece, it was a great story. But it's like, it was half tragedy and half nirvana.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
it
kind
was
of
crazy.
an analogy for Johnny. All right,
Yeah.
his life had a tragic element to it that was kind of played out in front of everybody.
Sure.
I mean, radio didn't play him. Okay,
No.
really, but if you were living in New York or a fan of what was going on in New York and coming in to see these shows, seeing Johnny was, you could tell, hey, there's something up with this guy and it's not good. But at the same time, he had such a talent that it was like two sides of the same coin. I don't know how to describe it exactly,
Yeah, it
but
was. It was. He
yeah,
was. He was good and he was bad. He was tragic and he was
amazing.
amazing. He
Yeah.
had it
Yeah.
all and he lived
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
you don't
so
want to do what he did. Let me
no,
just put it like this: you don't ever want to take dope. You don't want to become a heroin addict because your life will be miserable,
Oh,
and most likely you will end up well worse if you survive. I went to too many funerals and saw
yeah,
too many girls come to New York City and be,
get
like you said,
get strung
working the
out.
street, get
Mm-hmm.
strung out and all that stuff. So it's a bad drug to idolize.
And I think that there's an element to Johnny, his whole, I guess, image or mythology, if you want to say it, that I think people kind of glorify that. And I always felt, you know, when I would see him live and people would, throw pills and shit on the stage, okay, because I've seen that.
Yeah,
It's like, I think the idea was, you went there to see him die or something, or see him OD or something. I'm like, no, that's not why we're here. This is, there was like an element to that sometimes in the audience, feeling of
sure.
like, like some of these people are here for the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
that
they
was
And
wanted to
always
see
the
the.
that was always the Edelman and Gigi Allen concert.
oh shit, don't even bring him up. Yeah, the
Because
same thing. Yeah.
people went there to see, because the guy always said he was going to kill himself, and people were going to see that. It was insane.
Yeah, yeah, but Johnny was never about that.
No, he wasn't, and
Not at all. I mean, the music spoke volumes.
Oh yeah,
that's right. He
Yeah,
he got high because he liked getting high, but his music. If you think you're gonna do dope and become a great artist like him, you're fooling yourself. It
yeah.
doesn't work. It
No,
doesn't make you a better
he had
musician.
that natural
He had
talent.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, and that's really what he was running away from when, not that he was running away from his past, but he was leaving that to do something where he would be recognized for what he was: a good songwriter, a good musician, a great singer, a really good singer. He could carry a tune,
yes, he
and
could.
most people can't carry a tunes. And that's why, if you want to go back and talk about that idea, when he left New York, he went to Michigan, and there's always a side story and a drama and a
Mm-hmm.
this and that with his life. But he had gang war, and he came back with gang war, which was a first-rate, phenomenal band. Wayne Kramer on
Yeah,
guitar.
it's like a
He
super
had,
band, super group.
yeah, he had what's his name, the tattoo guy playing horn.
Yeah, I forget now.
I can't think of his name right now. He's still in California. We saw him last year,
Yeah.
2 years ago in California. Bob Roberts. Bob
Yeah.
Roberts was a great horn player. Mm-hmm. And I believe the original band had the drummer, and I don't remember their names, I'm sorry. But I think the original drummer and bass player from Mitch Ryder's band. And that band was a crack band. That band was fucking great. They could play, right?
Have you, just interrupt you for 1 second? You mentioned Mitch Ryder. Have you heard the new Alice Cooper record?
No, I haven't.
He's got guys from the band in there. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, when they came to New York and they were playing around, the audience, they didn't want to see that. They wanted to see, Johnny stumbling around on stage, and Johnny was clean at the time, or at least, on stage he was, and they were playing it straight. Well-rehearsed band, really good band, but the audience wanted to see the Heartbreaks. And then in New York, he had given up when he would go to Europe. He had given up playing with the Heartbreakers. And he said, I just don't want to do that anymore. I want to play, and then a lot of the audience didn't get what he was doing, at the end with the, the band that he.
I think like when he would come out with acoustic, he'd just come out with the acoustic guitar and do a couple of songs like that. I think in Europe, people didn't get that.
No, Europe, they got him. But in New York, they really, he couldn't, but that's, what he would do when he just wanted to play in New York.
But like you said, he did things on his terms.
He did. He lived on his own terms, and he was going, to New Orleans with a pocket full of money. He had a lot of money with him, and and he was going to make it there. He would have been good there, and it didn't work out. Somebody robbed him.
Yeah, that's a whole terrible story. Question: what if you could pick like your favorite solo Johnny album? What would it be?
To be honest with you, I don't really know the titles of the records because I just listen
So
to
Alone.
the music.
Would you pick that one?
Well, that's a phenomenal record.
Yeah.
That's a classic record. But the other, the one with the Crawfish and all that. That's a great record. Copycats. That's a great record.
Yeah, all
that's
covers.
A great band.
But it was all covers, the album. But him and Patty Paladin were fantastic.
It's a great record.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So I don't have a favorite. The obvious ones are obvious, but because I just knew him too well to pick a favorite song.
I got you.
After a while,
it's hard to choose that. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. But I was a fan. Don't get me wrong. I was a Heartbreaker, Johnny Thunder fan. Right? I went there to hear the music. I didn't care about the other stuff. And that's why I'm still alive. I was goody two shoes or whatever you want to say. When the stuff got too hard, I left. I wasn't part of that.
It's a common sense kind of thing,
But he was my friend.
Yeah.
I don't know how many other people can say that. I wasn't in his band. I was his friend.
Wow.
My wife was his friend. We, was friends with Josephine and Marianne. My wife Hillary was friends with we were friends. I would take his dog one time. I had, when he couldn't keep certain things. I had his kid. We took care of his kid for a month and a half in the house, but we were friends like a few other people. There's a whole clique of people that were his friends that are sort of under the radar.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he had his go-to people and his friends that took care of him and loved him for what he was other than just the music.
Yeah. He had,
So as far as this show goes, Friday night, it's going to be on Twitch TV. We have the whole link. We will put it up with the podcast when we get this up later tonight. what your contribution is it one song or you got more than one? What do you got?
No, I did 2 songs. I
Okay.
did one of my favorite songs was I guess it's a favorite song. I should have said this was It's Not Enough.
Oh,
To me,
one of my favorites too, man. Definitely.
It's a great melody. Great, he takes a simple set of words that turns into a freaking novel. It's just, to me, it's a great song.
The solo in the middle, Joe.
Yeah.
Okay, is one of my all-time favorite solos by anybody.
Yeah, and I don't attempt to play it.
I was going to ask you, do you pull it off?
All right. So,
No,
guys, it's on Twitch TV. This was not Punk 77.
Twitch TV.
Okay.
This was not Punk 77. Is that it?
Yep.
Okay, we'll put it up on the link so everybody can check it out.
And then the other song I did is a song that I wrote about Johnny. I was in my basement rehearsing with my band, and I get the phone call from Big Tony that he was gone. I go, what? He says he's gone. And so a couple of days later, I had been working on this song in my head and playing around with it. So I finished the words, and that's the other song I'm going to do. And I used the guitar that he wanted to trade for. I still have it, and that's why I did that. So that's the backstory behind that. So,
all right, cool. So we're looking forward to that. We had Sonny Vincent on the other day. He mentioned, I think he's playing a song that he wrote about Johnny as well.
Sure. Listen, everybody knows Johnny from their point of view. That guy had a million stories, a million lives. I mean, our lives are boring compared to his. The guy just had, a million facets to his life, and a million stories, and a million this and that, because he was who he was.
And he lived in his own way and on his own terms, and lived and died on his own terms. And that's really, right. Can you ask for anything more, Joe? I don't know. I mean, life is complicated enough. If you go out like that and live like that, that's not a bad thing.
He's a winner.
Absolutely. All right, Joe. So I want to thank you for coming on.
Where's Joey?
I don't know what happened to Joey Pinta, but we're going to have to get in touch with him. Hopefully we can get him on at some point.
Maybe we could do a show without the Johnny Thunder things, because Joey is
entertaining.
He is a funny man. He definitely is a funny
man. And not even that. He's a deep guy. That guy's a deep guy.
I like Joe a lot. I definitely do. So Joe Sztabnik, I want to thank you. Joe Sztabnik from New York Junk. And everybody check out the Johnny Thunder's tribute show. It's a memorial for 30 years that he's passed. This Friday night on Twitch TV. We'll put the link up. Again, Joe, thank you so much. It was an honor having you on. You have like an amazing career, and thanks for sharing some of this with us.
Well, thank you.
All
Thanks for having me.
All right, you have a good night now.
All right, good night. Bye.
Take care. Bye.